All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Darren Smith along with the great Steve Walls, and we welcome you to the pregame cheat sheet. We're live from Arrowhead Stadium. And of course, today, we were kind of joking about this. This is probably going to be the most lopsided game, should be the most lopsided game,
Hmm.
probably this side of Dallas and Arizona later on. Actually, around the same time, I guess, or later on this evening. But, Steve, the Kansas City Chiefs are hosting the Chicago Bears. Of course, the Chiefs are 12.5-point favorites.
Hmm.
Chicago is, they got a lot going on. Adam Schefter reported earlier that their defensive coordinator, who resigned earlier this week, resigned for some inappropriate behavior.
Mm.
Whether at the workforce or at home, that part hasn't been public just yet. But looking at the matchup, you got Patrick Mahomes going against Justin Fields. What's your first take when you look at this matchup today?
I mean, my first thing is you just mentioned. I mean, the Bears have a lot going on this week. I mean, not only that, but Justin Fields have made some comments, in the media, and that
And,
was kind of,
and we'll definitely talk about those comments.
yeah, I think that was kind of, taken out of context, but we'll talk about it. And then you have the report where $100,000 worth of team equipment was taken from
Yeah,
the
a couple days,
facilities.
yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, there's so many news stories coming out of Chicago, and what I call that is just a distraction. It distracts you from getting prepared to play the game today.
We look at this game, coming off the Chiefs win last week, 17-9
Hmm.
against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Offensively, things really just ain't been clicking just yet. I think today of all days is the day. I'm watching the Cleveland Browns against the Tennessee Titans right now, and for me, last week's game against the Steelers, a lot was going on, especially Watson with his stuff, but they faced a team today that's pretty bad with their pass defense, and it looks like they got their offense click. I think it's like 27-3 right now
Hmm.
in that ball game. I think this is a game for Kansas City where you really have no excuse to where you can start working on work, especially on offense. Get everything start clicking back once again. Now that you got Chris Jones, now that you got Travis Kelce back, and so because both of them played a big part in last week's win against Jacksonville.
Yeah, you know what? And I was thinking about that. I mean, we see it. I think Chiefs fans and us as media that cover the Chiefs on the daily, we're spoiled, right? Because we see
Yeah.
we say that the Chiefs offense is struggling. Patrick Mahomes still goes out there and has 300 plus yards last week in passing, right? So it's one of those things where I guess we expect them to do better. As far as the highlight reel and the spectacle of it all,
But the flip side is
yeah.
they expect it of themselves as well.
Of course,
So
of course. So let's just say the offense is clicking on all cylinders. I mean, does he have 500 passing yards last week? When you think about it like that, it's like they still didn't give you that highlight that they're used to or we're used to.
Yeah. Look, but Chris Jones though missed first game of the season, contract holdout.
Hmm.
First game though with the Chiefs last week, 1.5 sacks on the day.
Yeah.
What do you expect him to do? Now this is going to be his first game in Kansas City since he signed. Of course, he was in the stadium
Yeah.
for the season. What are you expecting out of him in today's game?
Man, I'm expecting the same as last week. I know the hype isn't going to be as well. I guess it's his first game at home, so it'll be. But last week was just like, man,
He should be eating
he came
today.
off. Yeah, he came off the street and suited up. It's like, I'm
Literally.
ready. Yeah. So, do I think he'll have the same impact as last week? I don't know. That defensive line is playing really well as a group, right? But I don't think he'll have the impact that he had last week. I think last week was just like, man, I'm hype. I'm ready to go in there and show him.
Reason why I respectfully disagree with you is just because seeing what Chicago is. Look, I watched the first game of the season with them in Green Bay, and the fact that, and I guess we can go right into it. The comments that Justin Fields talked about how he's got a lot in his head right now, trying to process, and he stated it was coach when he was asked point blank. He said coaching, and then he later walked it back and thought that the media took it out of context. But they asked you a question, and you answered it. I mean,
Of course,
the
of
truth
course.
is just the truth. And to an extent, I think comments that Keyshawn Johnson made on Friday, I agree with.
What do you say?
He basically said that you have a new head coach, you have a new offensive coordinator who's the first year calling plays in the NFL, hasn't worked with a quarterback, and you expect him to be able to, help Justin Fields become a better quarterback. And,
Yeah.
and so a lot of it does fall out. Look, obviously there's stuff that Justin Fields needs to take blame for himself because for me, the thing that made him so great last year was running the football, and
Yeah.
that's something that even in the first game, it was like he was so much trying to be a drop back quarterback that he forgot what made him great. And to an extent, Lamar Jackson suffered that the first couple weeks, and then we see what he's doing today, rushing for 2 touchdowns.
And I've said this earlier this week. It's one of those things where you look at the quarterbacks around the league, the young quarterbacks,
Yeah,
the younger ones that don't have that, older veteran in the room, they struggle.
yeah,
To me, I mean, you look at Patrick Mahomes, who do you have? Alex Smith. You look at Jalen Hurts. He had, was it Carson Wentz?
yeah,
Yeah, and then you look at Tua. Tua had Ryan Fitzpatrick, right?
yeah.
So all of those guys got to sit and watch not only the play on the field and let it unfold, but then you got to see how to be a pro, how to be in the film room, and the week game preparation.
But see, but the flip side of that is that his coach when he was drafted
Yeah,
was Chiefs offense coordinator Matt Nagy. I
yeah.
blame Nagy for his development because Nagy thought that he could do the whole he could do
Mitchell
the whole Andy
Trubisky.
Reid and
Yeah.
well Trubisky. No, I don't think Trubisky was there, but it was Carson Wentz.
Okay.
No, it was Andy Dalton. Andy
Andy
Dalton.
Dalton. Yeah.
Because Andy Dalton had just been signed from the Dallas Cowboys, and he straight up said that he wasn't trying to be that type of quarterback because he felt like he was still a starting quarterback in the NFL, and so. For me, like I said, I thought that the organization did a disservice to him, especially with trying to make him sit, make him learn, and then you put him out there, and it just wasn't a good look. For me, if you're going to draft that kid that high, you need to go and play him right. I mean, especially if you have a quarterback that says he's not trying to be. It's kind of just like Ben Roethlisberger said he wasn't trying to do that when he was in Pittsburgh.
Of course.
If you got a quarterback that says that, then that quarterback, especially if you drafted as high as you did to get this guy, and he's going to be your franchise quarterback, you may as well just put him in there, let him take his lumps and stuff. But also, you haven't really put the talent around him. Now, you got him a couple wide receivers this season, but the offensive line is still a total wreck.
Yeah, and a lot of that too is not only it's a lot of it is on Justin Fields too. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. He has to take some onus.
You've gotta be better. And what I mean by that is you see a lot of the young guys that struggle around the league, and what are they doing during the week? Like Justin Fields to me, and just going back and watching last week's game, he holds the ball way too long.
Yeah.
The thing right now that these young quarterbacks, and we saw Brady-esque, when the Chiefs couldn't get out to Brady, why? Because he was holding the ball with 2 seconds and it was gone.
Yeah.
And I think that's what if you have a terrible offensive line, that's what you've got to do. Now, we've seen him use his legs. We know that he can run. I believe there was a couple of instances where a couple of his run plays were just as fast. He was just as fast as Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
And so there's some positives there, and I don't want to just nag on him, but he has some positive things, but he just got to put it all together.
Yeah, and look, coming into this game and in today's game, it looks like the Chiefs are going to be without Nick Bolton. But, however, there were some questions on whether or not Isaiah Pacheco is going to play. He is going to play along with Kadarius Toney. What does that do for the Chiefs? Missing Nick Bolton, but still making sure that you've got Toney along with Isaiah Pacheco in today's lineup.
Nick Bolton's their leader. You have Justin Reed out there, who's the leader on the back end, but as far as like that guy down front, other than Chris Jones, Nick Bolton's the guy that gets the plays in. He has the green dot. And so I don't know if it'll be Drew Tranquil today. I believe it will. But that's why you bring in a guy like Drew Tranquil, because he's a veteran. He's able to slide in and play multiple positions on that linebacking core, and you keep rolling.
When you look at that, and of course, look, that's why they always say next man up. And if there's a game for him to miss, 12.5-point favorite, probably today is the best time. Get healed up. Willie Gay, of course, he suffered some lumps last week. He should be good to go in today's game as well.
Yeah, and like you said, this is a game where if you got anything that's nagging with you, just like, hey, I'm good, but I'm not good, right? Like you can take, because we talked to Nick Bolton after the game last week.
Yeah,
he seemed okay to me.
Yeah, I think I heard in practice this week.
Did he? No, it was last week in the game. His ankle. He went out for a couple plays.
Yeah, but he did seem fine. So
he seemed like he was all right. I mean, he stood there, talked. Because some guys when they get hurt during the game, it's like they don't want to talk.
Yeah, he was fine.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this then. So when we look at the game, and with Nick Bolton not being there, how much pressure? And look, everybody knows that watches. I'm a gambler, man. I don't mind that. But how much pressure do you think it is on the Chiefs to make sure that, because look, they only scored 20 points in their first game, 17 in last week's game. how much pressure do you think it is not only for them to have a good offensive game, but but also to be, look, there's still a lot of teams that are 2-0,
Yeah,
and when you look at all the power rankings, people are still giving the Chiefs the respect, saying that they're the best team in the league, even though they're 1-1,
which is
and
funny.
and they're
Yeah,
giving them the grace without Kelsey and Chris Jones and Week number one, which I get it. But how much pressure is on Kansas City that they need to not only cover the spread but look good in doing so?
a lot. I mean, especially today when you got a Bears. You said
12 and a half.
12 and a half point.
Yeah, I can't. That
You
half a
you
point make a big difference.
yeah, and here's the thing too. We've seen the Chiefs come in as not the underdog, right? Like they come in as a favorite in a lot of games, and they've struggled.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the offense has to start fast. I mean, because you get that come out, you bit you laxed, but I mean, you're at home. Um, Even last week, they struggled at the beginning of the game. Then it seemed like they just flipped the switch and turned it on at halftime. So I think more of the pressure is on the Chiefs' offense more than it is defense, because the defense has held. Week one, you hold a team to 14 points on the defensive side of the ball, and then last week you hold teams. You hold the Jacksonville Jaguars to 3 field goals. So I mean, it's the offense that has to get it in gear. But with the pressure being on the Chiefs, that takes off all the pressure from Justin Fields. He can go out there and just play. I mean, and that's scary because this is one of those games where it's kind of make or break. This could make your season.
Well, here's the thing. Of course, the pregame cheat sheet, Darren
Hmm.
Smith, along with Steve Walls. We want to thank you all for joining us, whether you're watching us on Facebook, YouTube, or X, as they, I guess, formerly known as Twitter.
You call it X, you call it Twitter.
Yeah, well, Mama named it Twitter. I'm going Twitter.
All right.
So,
It's like we Xing, not tweeting.
exactly. So, but going back and look at it, I mean, look, you bring up a good point about the point spread, because for me, I think it's important, and it's one of the questions that I asked Patrick. I know you were there as well this week in the presser. I asked Patrick because we've had this conversation over the last couple of weeks as relates to some of the wide receivers, and especially Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and I think he's got maybe 6 targets thus far within the 2 weeks, and I think
Yeah.
4 catches, and I asked Patrick whether or not he's concerned about whether or not MVS is frustrated. Look, Patrick is diplomatic. I don't expect him to,
People's guy.
he's a people guy. Yeah, I like that. But you and I both know, we see with our own eyes, a man that's making $11 million this year. We don't have to pocket watch, but we also see what we see in the locker room.
Of course.
That man wants to be more actively involved. Now, look, everybody loves winning, and everybody says the right thing when it comes to winning. But I mean, how much do you think the fact that he's not really putting in, he's not feeling like he's contributing as much to the team's success as he should?
I think there's a part of me that says MVS is frustrated.
Yeah, I think
because
he is.
because you come here, and of course last year you have Juju, you have Nicole, you have a plethora of wide receivers, and there was no really legit number one. Even Patrick said at the beginning of the year, if you're a fantasy owner, don't expect these guys to have big numbers.
Right.
It's going to be a different person each week. And so I think he understood last week. It's like, all right, it's my first year where I'm still getting my feet wet. Now you're coming in week one. You didn't have that many targets. Week two, what did he have? 4 targets last week?
I think he had 2 and 2 last
Okay,
week. I
yeah,
think it was 4 and 2 the first week.
Yeah, yeah,
2 and
okay.
2
So
last week.
flip him. And he wants to go out there and be the man. He's the big money guy in that room.
Yeah, well, and I look at it as this. I mean, obviously he wasn't the guy in Green Bay because you had Devontae Adams. But again, when the Chiefs sign you to a nice deal,
Yeah.
you want to have the opportunity to come in and to prove that you are an elite wide receiver, and that you are what you're value wise with what they're paying you. And it's like, if you don't get the opportunities, or if you and the quarterback aren't on the same page. And granted, look, we know the beauty of the Chiefs offense is that you can pretty much put anybody in there for the most part and make
Plug and
plays
play.
and plug and play. But again, I mean, there's still a thing where there's levels to this, especially, you got a second-round draft pick in Rashee Rice, who's got more touchdowns than MVS does,
Yeah.
and MVS is the big money guy. I mean, that's
To me-
and we're obviously not trying to put anything in the locker room, in the atmosphere.
Yeah, no.
But we are. But this is stuff that we observe as you and I go into the locker room every day.
Yeah, one of the things, and I had a chance to talk to MVS on Friday, And I went up to him like, "Hey, can I get you on my 2 minute drill?" And he's like, and I said, "It's no football question." Like, oh, you could just see
Yeah,
the relief from
yeah,
him. He's like, "Oh, okay, cool." So I mean, you look at that wide receiver room, and you're still scratching your head because you have a guy like MVS, and you thought when he came here, he was going to turn the page, because in Green Bay
right.
he wasn't the one, and it was questionable whether he was
He
the
was.
two.
I think he was like the
Third
third receiver.
option,
Yeah, third
yeah,
option.
yeah. So he comes here and he's like, all right, well, I'm the older, I'm the veteran. Know you have Kelsey. I know that's going to always be your first option, but hey, I'm your second option. And then you think about the route tree that he's running. He's getting the deep routes. Are you wanting him to get the Tyreek Hill routes? Are you wanting him to just, because you don't see anything over the middle. You don't see anything like,
No slants or
yeah.
which again goes back to the whole Mahomes and even the timing and stuff
Mhm.
because it's like if you got them going go routes like Mahomes is either overthrowing them or underthrowing them
Yeah.
or putting the ball to where it's in danger and it's like I'm just not feeling that connection and that again when you go back and say that Friday you went to talk to him and when you told him it wasn't any football questions he was like just by your expression it seemed
Yeah, I'm
like
telling you.
it seemed like it was like weight lifted off his shoulder like man I ain't trying to talk about no football
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
talk about okay,
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
You know what
yeah,
I'm saying?
yeah.
And we tell people all the time, we're in the locker room. A lot of times, we, Steve and I, we normally like to talk ball. Maybe what after the game and maybe
Wednesday.
Wednesday, but like Thursday, Friday, man, we talking about other stuff,
Yeah,
just because and then depending on the game, like last week's game in Jacksonville. I mean, it was just so damn hot, but but we were in the locker room for such a long time. It's like, well, hell, I'm tired of talking about it now. We can just talk shop
yeah.
and it's whatever. So, I mean, we have different avenues in how we go about approaching and dealing with the players, and that's what they respect. But like you said, man, for him to feel like I don't want to answer no football question, but you come with that. It's like that is still weighing on his mind
Hmm.
because it's like because if he takes the football questions, he's gonna be like,
Good
do
afternoon.
you feel like you're doing enough
G.H.A.
this
people
and that,
Yeah.
and then he's
today.
he's gonna feel a certain kind of way.
Yeah, and you think about just and talk about the wide
Phone
receiver
lines at
room.
the press box is the
Um,
working area.
I think,
To ensure
to
proper
be honest,
atmosphere, we
Justin
should keep
Watson
the
is
floor spread out from the press
the
box to
go-to
the front
guy
of the
right now.
chair.
Yeah,
And we hear Patrick and Travis. They talk about the scramble drill all the time. We see when the pocket breaks down, Patrick gets out and he's able to find whoever is open. And on watch today, is MVS just not getting open? Is he still moving around? I mean, because we saw guys.
I'm laughing because normally we talk about our X factors, and you
Yeah.
kind of lead it too.
Yeah, no, like
It's
I
like,
mean, seriously, like you see guys, and I don't want to go back to but you saw like Tyreek, you saw Demarcus Robinson, you saw all those guys get open. And they always say Patrick's telling them keep running. So is it that MVS is not getting open? Because to me, you run the first part of the route, and then it's like, all right, I can just do what and just go to open space.
yeah.
We hear Sky Moore talk about it. Hey, I just go to open space. And so is that what he's not doing? So I mean, I really want to see because it's kind of mind-boggling to be like, are you just out there? I mean, what is it that you're doing?
Yeah, that's when we get to the X factor part. That's
Yeah,
I mean, basically, the wide receivers is my X factor in today's game. And because look, you look at Sky Moore. Sky had I think he had a touchdown. I think he had a touchdown last week,
he
didn't he?
did.
He had
Yeah,
a touchdown. So he was happy. He was able to do some. I think Rasheed Rice had one in the first game. Of course, he's on the IR, I believe. Is it Rasheed or is the other receiver?
it's Richie James.
Richie James is
Yeah.
on the IR. He's going to be out for the next 4 games. Chiefs, again, 12.5 point favorite. You know, but see, I can see a scenario where the Chiefs are up. They let their foot off the gas because they're known to do that, and
Yeah.
Andy might not want to, embarrass his former one of his former executives, who's the
Yeah.
GM for the Chicago
Ryan
Bears,
Post,
Ryan
good guy.
Poles. Yeah,
Good
good
guy.
guy. But let's look at the defense for the Chiefs.
Hmm.
Now, I said this before the season.
Hmm.
I said my MVP is Steve Spagnuolo going into this year
Okay.
because remember before the Detroit game I said I think we're going to see some of his best play calling because he's going to have to try to manage without Chris Jones. I think the first game he did just that, limited Detroit to 14 points. Of course, they got the 21 based off the pick six from Mahomes to Tony that got batted up and returned. what have you seen from this defense? Last week they only give up 9 points,
Mm-hmm.
three field goals. I
Yeah.
mean, I talked to Spags after the game last week. It's funny. I was talking. I was waiting. We was in the locker room, and this tells you how long that they were
Yeah.
while we almost missed our flight because the players are talking and doing whatever. I'm waiting. I'm waiting to talk to L'Jarius Sneed, but Spags is there, and I get a chance to talk to him, and then but I told him, I said, look, man. I think that you're going to be the MVP this year because one, I know he wants to be a head coach. I mean, he told me again last week he wants to be a head coach again in the NFL, but he's doing such a fantastic job to where Chiefs top five, top 10 defense right now. I mean, giving Patrick everything that he hasn't really had,
Mm-hmm.
and especially at this time of the season. Now the defense has always gotten better
Of course.
as they gotten close to the
Of
playoffs, but
course.
to have that to start the season off, I mean, and really they're carrying the offense.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, what's that say about what you've seen from this defense, and can the offense finally, put a little balance between the two?
And it's funny you say that about Spags because just last week after the game, I asked a couple of the guys like, "What is it that you guys are doing differently? You know,
I just think it's just that extra year,
yeah,
especially the rookies, having a year in that system and playing at a high level. I mean, because now basically you don't have to learn. You should know the stuff
hmm
and just know where you need to be.
yeah." And I think and a couple guys said, "Hey, we're playing with a chip on our shoulder. We have to." Um, we got something to prove and like we got something to prove to our fans,
Yeah.
us. We got something to prove to media, and so I think when you playing like that, that's a scary defense, And then just I asked Spags earlier this week, I believe it was on Thursday. We saw, I think it was Nick Bolton was mic'd up on the Chiefs Kingdom show, and it showed him telling Chris Jones, "Hey, line up, find somebody to win against, find somebody to win against." I said, Spags, do you give Chris Jones that option to say, "Hey, I'm going to go wherever"? He said, "Yeah, we give him that option because anybody on that defensive line can move up and down." Chris ultimately, makes a decision of where he wants to go. And I'm like, man, you trust your guys that much to where, because sometimes you get like Justin Fields was talking about being a robot.
Yeah.
You get these guys line up in that one spot
And that's what it is.
each and every time, and you got look at these defensive tackles across the league. Aaron Donald, he's gonna line up wherever. You're not gonna know.
But you know what that is? One, Chris has been in the system
Yeah.
5 years now, four,
Yeah.
5. So he should know it like the back of his hand, and that's where the trust factor comes in. But you know what I compare that to, and I'm gonna tell you something. If we talked about it, the Cleveland Browns, they got the Jim Schwartz, the former defense coordinator for the Eagles. He is their new DC. I mean, and just watching the way they play, they're all over the field. Darius Smith, who they signed as a free agent.
Yep.
No, they got him in a trade. They got him in a trade from Minnesota in the offseason. He says they're playing in that system. Again, they can move around. They can, I mean, you see Myles Garrett first game, dribbling imaginary like he's a basketball player,
Yeah.
dribbling and going out and forcing the sack. I mean, he's saying that playing in that type of defense is allowing them to basically play without a seatbelt.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's and for the most part, that's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing right now. They're going right now. I mean, that's what we're seeing right now with the Kansas City Chiefs and this defense right now.
Yeah. I mean, to me, and the offensive guys will tell you, like sometimes, like it was always, I guess the elephant in the room. Like, oh, we know the defense won the game, right?
Yeah.
Like this is years past, but this year, Patrick can tell you, hey,
Oh,
the defense won this game for us.
Boy, you don't have a choice because it's obvious.
Yeah, so I think they're finally getting the credit, I guess, that they want, that they deserve, especially from the offensive guys.
X factor in today's game for you. Offense. We'll start with the offense, and then I'll go defense, and then vice versa.
I think it has to be Patrick Mahomes. I think you've got to show, you've got to make these wide receivers better. Because we're expecting, I guess not only us but the team, they're expecting a lot from these guys, and I mean you look at social media and they're getting like, oh man, why Kadarius Toney isn't catching the ball? Why did he fumble last week? Why so many questions about this group? You have to definitely, we talk about Travis Kelce, how being out there helps the wide receiver group. Well, Patrick Mahomes has to help them as well and make them better on the offensive side of the ball. What about you?
Defensively, got to go with the head coach, Matt Eberflus. One,
Yeah.
He's got to call. He's got to call the defense. He's the
Yeah.
defensive guy. You're without the DC. How do you get your players, especially on the defense, up, knowing what you're going against, and Patrick in this offense, and Travis Kelsey, and knowing with all the turmoil that you went through this week, how do
Hmm.
you get them all aligned and to buy in what you're selling? So for me, on the
Yeah.
defensive side, that's the X factor. Defensively for you, what's the X factor?
Ooh, I think it's gonna be Drew Tranquil.
Mm.
I think you feeling a huge role
Big
with
shoes.
yeah, with Nick Bolton. But I mean, he's a veteran. But I think he's going to, show his worth. I mean, you look at it, you talk about it, next man up. How well will he play today?
Again, as I mentioned before, my X factor is the wide receivers in this
Hmm.
game. Again, you said Patrick needs to make them better. Look, I'm a big proponent of this. It gives you the opportunity. You've got to make the most out of it. If
Yeah,
he's throwing you the football, you got to catch it. You got to
yeah,
do
yeah,
something with it.
yeah.
And like, I mean, we've seen these players have opportunities, and they'll drop the football or pop it up in the air, and the interception will take place. And
Hmm.
so, I mean, for me, yeah, that's the X factor.
Okay, I like that.
As we close out, give me your prediction for today's game.
Oh,
Do the Chiefs cover?
12 and a half. Ooh, when's the last time they covered?
They actually covered last week.
Did they?
Yeah, that's saying much.
I think
And
I
that's
think
just because Jackson couldn't figure out a way to score.
if the Chiefs are able to come out, we haven't seen them drive down the field and score first in a long time.
You know,
Um, we haven't seen that in a long time. I think this will be the week that you really want to do that because you're playing against a team that's going to allow you to do that. I think if they're able to come out and do that, they're going to win by 2 scores.
so gambling wise, I did an all spread. I got Chiefs by 6.5. But
Mm,
but but
half of the 12 and a half. Okay.
but the Chiefs should look. The Chiefs should be able to do. I mean, it's again for me. If they don't, I got more questions about the Chiefs offensively than I do anything else because
Hmm.
this is a team that, hell, granted division opponent, but Green Bay put 38 up on them. Now I don't know. I don't think Green Bay is doing much today against the Saints, but still, the Chiefs, if they are to be, they're the defending Super Bowl champions. And this is one of the worst teams in the league. You've got to be able to put your foot on their necks, just like Dallas has been doing, just
Hmm.
like 49ers have been doing, just like Eagles have been doing. I mean, this is what you are expected to be and expected to do, and I think that they do it. I think they win 31-13.
Mm.
So I'm gonna
Jeez, that's
give
a mollywhopping.
yeah 18 points.
Yeah.
So I expect it. Now what happens after that,
Okay.
is what it is. But look, make sure you join us tomorrow. Steve Walls, myself, DJ Q, along with Sean Tyler, will be at the Chicken and Pickle for our Red Hour show. 6:30 to 7:30. You can watch it live on here, of course, but we would love to have you
It's
there
burger
in
night.
person.
Come down, hang out.
Is who?
Burger night.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh.
Just saying, if you guys want burgers on a Monday, I mean, you don't have to cook, bring kids. I'm just throwing you the oop.
Oh, you just got to catch it. You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying? But see, before we get out of here, man, let everybody, want to thank our sponsors, especially our suit people. Go ahead and do your thing.
Yeah, I appreciate my friends over at Dillard's, located at Zona Rosa. Remember, your kids we talked about kids. If your kids need homecoming fits, whether boy, girl, have them go out there. I helped out a young man that was searching for a fit with his family for homecoming. I
Nice.
just happened to be in picking up my suit, and they were looking for some stuff. I said, hey, go with this, and they were grateful. So make sure
Nice.
you go out and talk to Heather or Jeff in the men's department, and they'll make sure they'll take care of you.
And for me, of course, look, I'm always eternally grateful for Todd White and Todd Taylor suits and or Todd suit or Todd. I don't know why I'm getting tongue tied at the moment, but I do gotta say I gotta thank him for the whole John Wick look that we got going on today with the all black. But make sure saying you go out and see him. He's located inside War Parkway, 87th and 85th and State Line. Take care of you. I know I had some people from 103 go out there this week and get some suits. So, look, make sure you join us post-game. Steve and I will do a post-game show. We'll bring you Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and anybody else that they bring to the podium. And again, tomorrow we will be at Chicken and Pickle, the Red Hour. And next week, make sure you join us. We will be live in New York City. Well, I guess the game's technically in Rutherford,
New
New
Jersey.
Jersey, New Jersey, but we'll be in the Big Apple next week for Sunday Night Football with the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the New York Jets. So for Steve Walls, I'm Darren Smith. Thank you so very much for tuning in and joining us. Make sure you follow us on social media at Steve Walls KC, at Darren Smith WHB. We are out of here.
Football fans, you can't spell gate without Gates, and great tailgates start with Gates sauces and seasonings. Named synonymous with mouth-watering tailgates. When you make your list of tailgate essentials, add Gates sauces and seasonings to that list. Spice up your tailgate experience with that unmistakable great taste. Available in 4 tantalizing flavors. Classic, sweet and mild, mild and hot. Find it at your local grocer, and if you don't see it, ask for it. Visit GatesBarbecue.com to purchase any of the great sauces and seasonings. Great tailgates start with Gates.